Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USAPrepares.com. We're delighted you're here. And we broadcast 2 hours daily, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. And John is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli. And, sometimes people ask us, why do we say cocked and locked? Well, this is a preparedness broadcast, right? Well, we mean it about everything. Just like the Boy Scouts. Always prepared. Always prepared. That's exactly what we mean. Prepared for everything. And today, we're going to be talking with Guineith Isaacs from Australia, live from Australia. And she's got an update about a criminal racket. A criminal racket maintaining data about you. And this is absolutely alarming. Now, you thought you've heard it all. You've heard about how you can be listened to on your cell phones. You've heard how the camera can be turned on your cell phones. You've heard this here. You've heard how your personal computer microphone can be turned on without your knowledge. You know that you can be listened to with big ears. And back in the 1960s, they had a parabolic reflector. Children could buy it. And I think it was $29.95. And it was like a 2-foot diameter, orange, reddish disc with a parabolic reflecting technology and a microphone at the end of it at the feed horn area of this, and it could pick up sounds from 300 feet away. Well, that's nothing compared to the technology of today. You can be listened to through your glass windows in your home. The vibrations can be listened to right at the glass from afar, and you won't even know what's happening. And of course, your texts, your tweets, your emails are all being monitored. Well, and your medical records, they're all in a repository. Barry made sure of that. Well, wait till you hear what Guineith has to say about the next assault on your private information. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, how are you, Vincent?
I am well. Did I introduce this properly? That this is a huge assault, and people just are not going to believe what you're going to say.
It is. But something? It's actually been hiding there in plain sight all along. Because my sons, sometimes they watch DVDs. We've got really lousy we've got really lousy television reception around here. And my sons are teenage boys, and so they get DVDs. They got this DVD starring Jim Carrey called Bruce Almighty. Okay? And in this film, okay, Bruce Almighty gets given all the powers of the Most High. And one of the things that he does in this movie is a bit of background. He's a news reporter that does, the lighter side of life things on the, the news shows that you get. And they have the reporter that does the lighter side, but he really wants to be the anchor. Anyway, he gets given all the powers of God, and so what he does is he, arranges for himself to find the grave of Jimmy Hoffa. And I gather that that's quite a famous murder case in the U.S.
It is, and people Yeah, people have wondered what happened to him. He was the leader of a very large labor union, and he seemed to have had a meeting at a restaurant, hopped in a car with a couple guys, and next thing you know, he's gone. And people have wondered if he is part of a cement pier at the Meadowlands. It's kind of a racetrack in New Jersey, or he's been deep sixed somehow or cut into pieces. No one's really sure. Well, I shouldn't say no one's really sure. There might be two people that know exactly, or maybe a few more, where he might have ended up. But it's a mystery.
Anyway, in this movie, Bruce, who's the TV reporter, finds the body of Jimmy Hoffa, and it's complete with his dental records and birth certificate. Which, of course, makes it very easy to identify him. And why anybody would be buried in a murder case with their dental records and birth certificate is, completely beyond me. But that's the way that the powers that be hide this in plain sight. They have your dental records, okay? Every time you go to the dentist, your dentist is required to send an updated, I don't know where this database is. I don't know what it's called. Okay, I should just say that. But I know it exists, and I'll tell you why I know it exists in a moment. Okay? Your dentist is required to send your dental records to a government database, okay, where it is basically kept in cold storage in case it's ever needed. Anytime, let's say that you or I get murdered, well, not me, because I haven't been to a dentist since I was like 15, but let's say somebody with a good set of dental records is murdered, then the FBI or whatever the equivalent organisation is in your country goes to this database and gets your dental records. They don't have to find out who your dentist was because the dental records are all kept in a central database somewhere, okay? Now, I know that this is the case because many years ago, when my husband Archie, who I've mentioned before, had his mission, he had a very, very good friend who used to be a bank robber, and he actually became a Christian and gave up his life of crime. But he was a bit simple-minded, but in a lot of ways he was a lot cleverer than most of us because he had a clue about most things that was going on. But he tended to talk like this, so nobody really took him very seriously, except when he had a gun and he tried to rob banks. Then everybody took him seriously, and I think he ended up doing some time. Now, he's passed on since then, but he had dreadful teeth, and Archie said to him one day, his name was Johnny. He said, Johnny, why don't you go and get your teeth fixed? And he said, don't you know, Archie? And Archie said, what? And he said, every time you go to your dentist, all your records are kept, and they're sent to a government database, and they can track you anywhere. They're sent to a government database, and they can track you anywhere. Okay? You'll find, if anyone's ever been involved in the prison system, they're all offered free dental care. It's not because the government cares for your teeth. Okay? They don't put fluoride in the water because they care for your teeth. They couldn't give a rat's backside about your teeth. If they cared so much about your teeth and your health, why would they be putting nitrous, sodium nitrate in the Colgate toothpaste? Why would they be putting bisphenol A into dental prostheses? Why would they be putting mercury into amalgam fillings? if they cared so much for your health. They don't care about your health, okay? And if you decide to change dentists, it's not a problem because your new dentist will send your dental records to the same government database. Another place where this is, hidden in plain sight is Weird Al Yankovic put out a song a while back, a year or two ago, and it was called Party in the CIA. And it was a take on Miley Cyrus's song Party in the USA. But he talks in this song about how the CIA has a better dental plan than the FBI. And I heard that, and I remembered Johnny Kay, that was his name, and I had a laugh to myself. And I said, there you go. Anything that the powers that be do, for whatever reason, they have to tell you about it first. And that's two cases in the popular press, in pop culture, where that particular database is referenced. And I would love to know the name of it. But those two pop culture references are enough for me to say this database definitely exists somewhere. I would love to know its name. If there's anybody out there in the, in government so-called corporate, whatever you want to call it, surface, who knows what this database is called, I would suspect it's probably housed somewhere near the FBI or the CIA or somewhere like that. But my husband Archie had terrible teeth, and I asked him why he had such bad teeth. Why didn't he go to a dentist and get his teeth fixed? And that was the answer that he gave me. And he told me the story of Johnny Kay. He told me about how he never wanted a dentist to go anywhere near his mouth because it was just one more way that they could track you.
Guineith, I can't thank you enough for sharing this with us. I've got a couple comments about what you've just said, and I'll say them when we come back. Guineith Isaacs, she's in Australia. USAprepares.com. We'll be right back. Class, we're talking about another threat to our private, personal, medical, dental information. And here are some of my thoughts. I happen to know a few dentists, and when I built a computer system for a dentist, back in the 90s, I know that it had a network, well, it had a file server, it had connection to the internet, it had workstations, and I built up a backup server. And what the backup server was simply a hard drive, and every day, the dental database, the updated records, the appointments, and the software, and all the dental records were backed up to a hard drive, and it was all contained within the dental office. It never left. But I can tell you today that that may not be the case, because generally speaking, information technology technicians and specialists, if you will, may say to the dentist, tell you what, there's a great way we can back up your data, and we can send it to the cloud. So where's the cloud? Well, nobody really knows exactly where the cloud is. Well, a few people do, but we don't. So the data goes out there. Now, what is done with it? I don't know. But I don't want my dental records going out to the cloud. I don't want my medical records going out to the cloud. But I can tell you that we have an instructor who has not admitted this publicly, but he was involved, or she was involved, in building a database of records. what people know how to do, their skills, and so forth. And then after that, that database was enhanced to have more and more characteristics, more fields associated with that data. I can tell you that in the 90s, I built networks, local area networks, wide area networks, that were involved in storing student information in the public school system. So as a computer jockey, I build this network, some software gets loaded, it's a database software, it maintains records of all kinds of things, grades, attendance, comments. Now, how much has that been enhanced since the 90s? I don't know. But imagine what could happen if we had a unique identifier for a person, and we could link their medical records, their school records, their job records, their records with encounters with the government, all kinds of encounters, traffic citations, everything you could possibly think of, motor vehicle registration. So now we have student records, health records, dental records, every kind of thing you could think about, all being linked. If we only had a unique identifier, geez, wouldn't that be great if we could just do that? What would that unique identifier be? Well, that would be your social security number. Let me read this to you. This is from a website. I don't know how much we can trust this website, but it's nsa.gov1.info, nsa.gov, the number 1.info. And it says, Domestic Surveillance Directorate, defending our nation, securing the citizens. Then there's a picture of this data center, and I drove past this in Utah. And it's called the Utah Data Center. And here's what it says. And I'm going to be very brief about this, but I'm going to read it word for word. Background. The Utah Data Center, codenamed Bumble Hive, is the first intelligence community comprehensive national cybersecurity initiative. Data center designed to support the intelligence community's efforts to monitor, strengthen, and protect our nation. Our Utah massive, this is their words, massive data repository is designed to cope with the vast increases in digital data that have accompanied the rise of the global network. I'll read a little bit more when we get back.
A few years ago.
Yep, we'll be right back. So just to continue reading a few more lines, the $1.5 billion, 1 million square foot facility houses 100 square feet mission critical tier 3 data center. The remaining 900,000 square feet is used for technical support and administrative space. Our massive 20-building complex also includes water treatment facilities, chiller plants, electric substation, fire pump house, warehouse, vehicle inspection facility, visitor control center, and 60, that's 60, diesel-fueled emergency standby generators, and a fuel facility for a 3-day 100% power backup capability. And there's a sign in front, and I'm reading from the image right on the website, nsa.gov1.info. Welcome, and this is a stone-type sign, concrete sign, and it says, welcome to the Utah Data Center. Below that, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. So that's the Utah Data Center. And what are they storing there? Wouldn't we all like to know? But obviously, they're storing information that they think is necessary. And it's a massive facility. It is so massive, It is roughly, it's 1 million square feet. What's 1 million square feet? Well, that would be about 3 football fields long by 3 football fields wide.
That's a huge
And don't think it's one.
space.
And don't think it's just one. It looks like it's 4 stories. In this image, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4 stories. This is absolutely massive. The power requirements are huge, and the cooling requirements are so huge that they use a massive, massive amount of water, so much water to cool this monstrosity that it puts the people of the nearby residents at risk because of the amount of water that this monstrosity consumes. So, Guineith, I'm just trying to put an exclamation point on what you're saying. These guys won't stop at anything to learn everything they can possibly learn about us, including our overbites and our chewing patterns and how many of 32 teeth we have left and what condition they're in.
You know something? If we've got nothing to hide, well, why don't we just all walk around naked? There's something
I
just don't want the outside world to see.
It's none of their business. It's none of their business.
It's none of their business. Absolutely. You know? I think that's gobsmacking. And hang on, isn't Utah in the middle of a massive desert?
Yeah.
Don't they have a little bit of a water shortage problem most of the time?
Well, it's I've been there. I've driven, and it's in some places there's a lot of nothing there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, having I still live in a different semi-arid area. I used to live in Geraldton in Western Australia, and they have signs as you are entering and leaving Geraldton. I can't remember which it is, but it says, north of Geraldton, permanent water restrictions apply. This is you are entering a desert environment. And, you know, I would say that Utah is probably a lot drier than Geraldton and probably a lot drier than here. But here, everybody's watching their water all the time because it's a semi-arid environment. And for them to just use that much water is just stupidly irresponsible. But like I say, even beside the point, okay, another pop culture reference. There's a movie out there called The Fast and the Furious, okay? The first, it's actually, I think there's about 7 or 8 of them now, but the first installment of it was released about 2000, okay? They have the tech guy in this movie, okay, finds out everything on the internet. In that day, the internet was brand new. I remember that time. I was, you know, probably already in my 30s at that time. But anyway, the cop is able to track people back then, 15 years ago, and all he needed was your cell phone number, and he could track you in that movie. And you can buy software, an app for your cell phone on the Google Play Store, which will track your children's whereabouts if you install this app onto their phone. And I believe that some of them you just need the cell phone number and you can track anybody's whereabouts. And that's what's available to the general public on the Google App Store. Okay, and I'm sure that Apple has a similar app in their neck of the woods. Okay? Now, if that's available to the public, you can guarantee that the government has something 10, 50, 100 times more sophisticated. Okay? And you just do not want the government knowing that sort of information because they are a bunch of criminals. it's not just that there's one or two rotten apples. It's the whole barrel. It's the structure. And the few good cops hamstrung to a large extent by a crooked system. Okay? It's a system of extortion. It's systemic extortion that undermines all of our human rights. Okay? You have, under Article 13 of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, the common law right to travel, for instance, wherever you want, without anybody's say-so. And you don't have to identify yourself under international law to anyone. Oh, yes, except if you happen to meet the local member of the Blue Plague down the road, who means well but insists that you show your driver's license upon request, despite the fact that that's in contravention of the Nuremberg precedents, which was particular members of the Nazi Party were actually hung for requiring that people identify themselves. That means they were hung by the neck until they were dead for requiring that people identify themselves. And that precedent is called Das Preparedness, which was the phrase that the Nazis used to require that you present your papers. Okay? And it was ruled all the way back at the end of World War II that this was an infringement of our fundamental human rights, our right to privacy and our right to freedom of travel. But that doesn't seem to stop the local Blue Plague members today, does it?
Guineith, I read a story a couple days ago, and the number was in the 90%, actually 97%. A study of a poll, if you will, of police fearing for their own safety. I'm talking about those who wear guns in uniform. I've seen 93%, I've seen 97%. But according to the research, this is theblaze.com, a staggering 93% said their colleagues expressed concerns about their own personal safety. Now, why is that? Well, I think that's because cops have snipers. Where'd that come from? You know, what gives a cop the right to execute someone from afar? Okay, through a sniper scope and a rifle barrel. What gives these police the authority to wear masks, ski masks, so you can't identify who they are? What gives them the right to hide who they are when they are pointing these weapons of death at us? And if you are subject to being at the wrong end of the muzzle of their guns and you are arrested, what do? You appeal to the same system for justice. So you're appealing to the same team. It's insane that we allow this, that we allow the police to wear masks so that we can't identify them. This is very similar to what you're talking about. And so why are the police afraid? And we said that this would happen. We said years ago on the air that this would happen, that there would be a time when people would just consider one uniform the same as the next, as the next, as the next. So when the police do bad things to we the villagers, that the village would start looking, and I'm talking about everybody, looking at the police as, I don't trust them. And that's what's happened. And the police themselves, in the 90 percentile, are afraid for their own safety. And it's not because they're helping little old ladies cross the street. It's because they've done bad things. Yep.
That's about the sum of it. And you know something, I'll have to continue this after the break, but I'd like to say what happened and the recourse that I've chosen to take, and a bit of the background and a continuation of what you were saying after the break.
Okay. Sounds good. Guineith Isaac's with us. Link on the website, usaprepares.com. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs is with us, and if you'd like to go to her website, she's listed at USA Prepares on the Instructors tab. You can click on that. Guineith, you want to tell us how to get to your website?
Yeah, I have a Facebook page, which is either Guineith Isaacs, just search for Guineith Gap Isaacs on Facebook, and you'll see, you won't see my face, you'll see the face of somebody that I really like, who's a media personality here in Australia and also in New Zealand, and it's got a sign underneath him saying, the views expressed on this website are blankety blank blank good ones. Okay? And he's a farmer-looking guy. So you know if you've got to the farmer who's got that little sign underneath on the icon, that's on my page. And also on Facebook, I manage the Common Law Education and Resource Centre, which is www.facebook.com/Aussie, that's AUSSIE, Common Law, all one word, okay? But yeah, what I was wanting to say, you were mentioning about internal investigation departments within police forces. Now, I actually did put in a complaint to the Victoria Police's Internal Investigation Department. And I know that you expressed your concern at the time. I told you beforehand that I was going to do this because I knew that I was taking a bit of a risk, to put it mildly. And I told various other friends that I was going to do this, because the police around here are absolutely out of control. I've said over and over again that they're engaged in sex racketeering. And as it happens, somebody in the Victoria Police took my complaint seriously. And it turns out that they have an investigation going into one of the officers who lives around here, and he seems to be the one that is cajoling all of the others to do his will. And this particular officer, he punched one of my friends in the belly so hard that his fist actually went through her abdominal wall and ended up inside her abdomen. And her young son had to fish his fist out of his mother's abdomen. And I don't know, that is an out-of-control cop. And then after that, he charged her with assault and put her on a 12-month good behaviour bond. How's that? That
of course, it's an outrage.
Absolutely gobsmacking.
Yeah.
And it turns out that they want this, I reckon, they want this particular officer out of the force, and justifiably so. But my fear is that even after he's out of the force, that he will continue to run his racket, because I believe that he has goods on the rest of the officers. Okay? Meaning that if they don't do what he says, then he will do something or release information on them or something. So basically that he has something that he can blackmail the rest of the officers in the force around here with. I don't have any evidence to back that up. That's just my intuition at work. But it is worth complaining, okay? It is a risk, and you have to think long and hard about it. You have to pray about whether this is something you should do. But in some circumstances, it absolutely is the right thing to do, to complain through the official channel.
Guineith, thank you for calling in and staying up late in Australia to bring us this live broadcast and about corruption, about record storage and medical information, dental information. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll see you soon.
Okay, you have a good day, won't you? Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you. Class. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, hour number 2 of USAPrepares.com. Delighted to be broadcasting with Kurt Wilson, the armchair survivalist. Welcome, Kurt.
Hey, what's happening, Vinny?
Well, I'll tell you what's happening. During the break, I looked out the window. We're having an ice storm here in our neck of the woods in Missouri. And here's what that means. It means that it's raining, but it's really cold. And it's cold enough for the rain to form ice on power lines, on tree limbs, on evergreen needles and branches. The evergreens look like they're all suffering under the weight of the extreme load of the frozen ice on the needles. The limbs of the trees without leaves, because we have a lot of hardwoods here, the limbs are bending downward. Some of the trees are bending over, and I think we are going to have a lot of destruction here on the farm in terms of woods. The grass, the blades of grass are frozen. It's like they are icicles standing up. We have electric fence tape. It's about a half an inch wide. It's like ribbon, and it has 6 strands of stainless steel wire in it. And we use these 30-inch step-in fence posts that we thread the electric fence tape through. And we've got, a couple miles of fence tape here at the farm, and we power it with a low-impedance fence charger. And it just gives a pulse of electricity, and if the cows bump into it, they go, I guess I shouldn't do that again. And we've got that, and that is frozen, and that probably will drag onto the ground and short out. And the fence won't be effective, and we use that to control grazing. What we do is we suggest to the cows that they stay in this particular field until they eat it, and then we move the fence so they can go to another field, and we encourage them to stay where we'd like them to stay, and we manage the grass with this electric fence tape. And I have a feeling that's going to short out during this broadcast, and we're going to have cows walking around all over the farm. So that's kind of that's kind of where we are right now, Kurt.
Well, we're in the same boat up here. It's just, and you know something, I don't want to use the term predicted, because I didn't pull it out of my hat. I read the old Farmer's Almanac, all of the different versions of it, and talked to people who were experts in predicting weather. We were going to have the coldest, worst weather in the United States history this year. And I said this 6 months ago. And yeah, it's happening. And it's cold. It's like this morning I woke up, it's 10 degrees, which is pretty good for many parts of the country right now, I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I discovered, and I'm not on a farm, but I do have some evergreen trees around the property that I have to trim the boughs and cut them back every year. And I discovered why. I interviewed a guy who's a horticulturist, and he said the best money we make is trimming trees for people who are too stupid to knock the snow off of them during the winter. Mm-hmm. Because and hedges, because the snow builds up and flattens the hedges out. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's knock the snow off. You can't, because you got too much to do. But you have these trees out front, and you get snow sitting on them. They will bend down the branches to the point they snap. Right. We have a utility here, a Vista Utilities. These are some of the stupidest people I've ever met in my life. They're supposed to be taking care of the power lines, which are above ground, of course. and you have tree limbs hanging on the power lines.
Right.
During the summer, during the best months, they're hanging on the power lines. And so what happens? And they don't cut it. They wait until the snow builds up or the ice builds up, and the limb crashes through the power lines, rips them out, knocks power out to 15 blocks, and then they go, oh, we better send an emergency crew out at 3 times, triple time, so that they can fix this. Why don't they do it ahead of time?
Well, that would be preparedness, and they don't listen to you, and they don't listen to us.
No, they definitely don't listen to me. I'm 2 blocks from their main office. So how are you doing, Vince?
We're going to talk about a couple things, and one of the things I'd love to... Here's what I have on my list for today, for you and me. Tips, tricks of the trade, and I've got a few of them, and I'd like to explore this hot water heater morass that I am stuck in the middle of, and I'd like to talk about how to make light bulbs last longer. I've done some experimentation, and I found a secret for a particular situation. Why don't we start with hot water heaters? Okay. And let me just, for those who haven't heard this story, about 10 years ago when we were building our farmhouse, I decided to look into hot water heaters. And the model that I chose was a Whirlpool model because it was available from Lowe's, the home improvement center, with a lifetime warranty. And I thought, this probably won't be the last hot water heater that I'll have to put in, but it'll be the last one that I'll have to buy and pay for because it comes with a lifetime warranty. The elements, the tank, the electronics, everything except the anode. And I noticed over the years that there's a drain on the bottom of all hot water heaters. And I would drain it once a month, and this gelatinous goo would come out. But it didn't come out of our hard water faucets. It only came out of this hot water heater. And so what I found out was ultimately when I bought a 50 and an 80 gallon, installed them at the same time. And what I found out was that, yeah, it says lifetime on the label, and call this number if you have a problem. And one of them started leaking, the 80. And so I called the 800 number, and I ended up with customer service on the phone with Whirlpool, which is owned by A.O. Smith. And the guy said, well, let's go through some diagnostics. And he asked me all these questions. I gave him the answers, and he said, okay, well, here's your return merchandise authorization. Bring this to Lowe's, and they'll work with you. And I said, okay, so new lifetime warranty hot water heater? He said, no, we don't make them anymore. Ultimately, to cut to the chase, I asked him about what water heaters they have available, and he said they have a 6-year and a 12-year warranty, hot water heater. They do not any longer offer a lifetime warranty, hot water heater. So no matter what I do, I'm going to be in a lousy spot because, one, maybe they'll give me my money back, but it won't pay for a new hot water heater. It won't be a lifetime warranty. It'll be a lesser water heater in my evaluation, in my terms, because Lowe's no longer offers an 80-gallon hot water heater. I can get a 50. Or actually, I could get an 80, but not the kind of 80 that I had. I can get one that meets the new EPA regulations. One that has a heat pump on top of it that's close to $2,000. It's not a $500 water heater anymore. It's about $2,000. And this hot water heater, they say will save a lot of money. Well, it won't save enough money to pay for the extra cost in my evaluation. And it's larger in diameter, and it's taller. Now, for those of you who have installed a hot water heater against a wall, I'm pretty darn sure that you didn't put your hot water heater in the middle of the room, and you installed it as close to the back wall where you've installed it as possible, because you don't want to waste the real estate, the floor space. Mm-hmm. That means that your new hot water heater may be larger. And it probably will, 3 to 6 inches in diameter larger. So for some of us, that's not going to work. And if you decide to get one of these new deluxe $2,000 models to replace your $400 or $500 model that had a lifetime warranty that they no longer offer, you'll need about 1,000 cubic feet of air space in order to provide enough air with enough heat in the air to extract the heat out of the air to put it into the hot water heater. So you're going to cool off your room, wherever it is. Now, you may want to not do that. Let's say it's in an area in the basement where, some people have set up, living facilities. Or let's say it's on the first floor in a closet. You're not going to get 1,000 cubic feet of airspace in order for this thing to operate if it's in a closet. So it's not going to work too well.
You and I talked about this yesterday. This is the insanity that started with the EPA back when Adolf Clinton was in charge.
Yeah.
They make these stupid requirements that you can't do. That's why we no longer have coal mining in the United States, because they have these stupid requirements for the EPA. I told you about my washing machine. It's the same thing. They don't allow enough water to go into it to wash your clothes properly. But I actually was at Home Depot about 2 weeks ago looking at water heaters, not for me, but for a friend of mine. I didn't understand what these things were. Sure, they look like a canister that water goes into, but then they have weird gizmos on top of them.
That's it.
Or they have weird piping on the side, or they're sealed, so you have no access, because after all, you're too stupid to control your own life, or your hot water heater. And I'm like, we're going to have to start taking care of the stuff we have, because we're not going to be able to buy new stuff that's going to work for us. And
that's exactly right. And here's what the plumbers are complaining about. So the new hot water heater that you saw at Home Depot is heavier. It's larger and heavier. Now, it used to take one guy, and I've done this. I have taken a hot water heater, put it on a hand truck. That's one of these things with wheels that you can, roll around, a washer or dryer, refrigerator. So I strapped one to a hand truck, and I brought it down the basement steps by myself. Well, it can't be done anymore. Now you need two people, because these things are so heavy that one person can't do it. One person can't even get one off the plumbing truck if you have a plumber do it. They've got to send two guys. Now you've got two plumbers, or a plumber and a helper. Let's talk more about it when we come back. It gets worse. So, Glass, if you're wondering all these wonderful things that Barry and the Bandits have done for you, this is just one small thing that's caused a problem for everybody who owns a home, or every landlord. Am I kidding? Have you ever used hot water? Everybody's touched with hot water, okay? So your costs are going to go up. Let me read a couple lines from plumbingperspective.com. A homeowner might decide to purchase a heat pump water heater or one of the highly efficient gas water heaters. Homeowners might face additional expenses related to changes to the venting for gas, adding a 120-volt outlet, or making provisions for the disposal of condensate. In some cases, the water heater may have to be relocated to operate properly or to mitigate noise. While the operating costs of a new hot water heater will be less because of their increased energy efficiency, it's likely that the maintenance costs will increase because of more sophisticated design and the integration of electronics, blowers, fans, condensers, or other components. Another drawback is that the water heater is likely to have lower hot water deliverability than prior models. For example, a model with less input may be required to achieve higher efficiencies, which will ultimately result in less hot water delivered. Great. I'm all excited. Where's the line? Let me get in line and get one of these things.
I tell you something. I moved in this house in '99, And using everything that I know, the first thing I did was took out the water softener. Because that gelatinous garbage that you're getting out of the bottom of your hot water heater is because of your water softener.
Yes, it is.
Water softeners, they put sodium, they put salt into your water. It makes you think you're not getting hard water anymore, and it does gelatinize. So first thing I did was I took that out, and my wife goes, Kurt, he has a receipt here. He paid $400 and something for that. I said, yeah, and they'll probably take it at the dump. So the truck threw it away, and I went to Home Depot. Went to Home Depot, and I bought 2 of these spin-offs. You like that?
Sounds kind of like some of the discussions that I have here at the farmhouse with my wife. That's great. Love it.
So I bought, these blue cartridges, canisters you buy. You unscrew and you put a cartridge in it, right? So I bought 2 of those, and I plumbed them in row. And I hooked them to the input from the street, the water going into my house. And so I'm going to be using 2 filters. The first filter was a sediment filter to pick up any chunks. Now, we got pretty good water here in Coeur d'Alene, so it's not that bad. And the second filter was a carbon block that took out bacterial and viral infections. So it took my water pressure down about 10%. And I could care less. It's not as if I got 3 feet of beautiful hair to wash every morning. I'm bald, so who cares? So now, the thing is, a hot water heater burns out. People all the time say, oh, yeah, the thing burned out. And it's like God did it. They have no clue why it happened. Why your hot water heater and other appliances burn out water appliances is because the heavy water or contaminants in the water get into your hot water tank, and they do 2 things. Your hot water tank isn't just a giant tank. It's coils inside that the water goes through. And then it does sit on the bottom of the tank. So the minerals clog up those coils like they do your arteries. And they sit on the bottom of the tank, and they literally rust. They will rust, and eventually you'll look in the bottom of your tank where the pilot light is, and you'll see water dripping down, and it looks like it's all rusted out. So I put this filter in, and then immediately, like Vince said, there's a valve at the bottom of the hot water tank. I put a hose to it, put it to a drain, and drained it out, and I had to force it out. It didn't want to drain. It was so glopped up. So I forced it out. I turned off the pilot light. You turn all of that off so it's not eating it up. And I blew that thing out and cleaned it out. I let it run for an hour. And then, when hot water heaters heat up sometimes and you hear it pop, 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 pop.
Kurt Wilson's with us. Hey, Kurt, how do we find you on the internet? I just went to armchairsurvivalist.com, and I'm having trouble getting there. Armchairsurvivalist.com. One word, armchair survivalist. Right. You got to know how to spell it, man. Yeah, ARMCHAIR survivalist.com. Yeah, something's up with the internet. I can't get to your website. Okay, armchair survivalist.
Or you can go to, there's a shortcut to our company Survival Enterprises. You go to S as in Sam, E as in Edward, the numeral 1. So SE1.us. It's the shortest domain name you'll ever see. SE1.us.
SE1.us. There you go. That's how you can get to Kurt Wilson. And he broadcasts weekly. And tell us about your broadcast, Kurt.
Yeah, my broadcast is every Sunday. I'm hosted by Scriptures for America. There's a long story to that, too, I'll tell you. I'm on the air for 2 hours. And you will get more news and information from me in 1 hour, period, than you get from any radio host. I don't care who, CNN, ABC, any of the...
Whoa. What about USA Prepares?
Well, you have information. There's a difference between information and news.
Okay.
But I do, seriously. And then I always come, and I always have something to talk about, something to help people survive a little bit better. And I say on my show, I said, look, when the Schumer hits the fan, You're not going to be in your bunker in the mountains with millions of dollars of gold and guns and food and dogs. You're going to be sitting in front of your TV set wondering, what the hell happened to the power?
Yeah.
So
Right.
I teach people how to survive better, optimally, where they are.
Great.
So,
and frugally, right?
That entails a lot.
And frugally.
Very much so. As I was telling you about my hot water heater, it's been in since 99, every year. About every 6 months, I drain it and flush it. And it takes all of the garbage out, and I change the filters, the spin-on filters, twice a year.
Mm-hmm. I've got a comment about those filters. I did a little bit of research, and I bought 100 of them. I try not to buy things by the each. I try to buy them by the lot.
Yep.
And I found out that I could get 100 of them for about $50. So I did.
Right.
Yeah, that was years ago. And I did some, they look like they're from China. And I thought, wow. So I made some calls. So I called local businesses, and I called all around the country, and I asked them, okay, so you've got these water filters, these 5 micron, 2 micron, 10 micron, 20 micron. Where are they made? Well, they're U.S. branded. Okay, where are they made? China. They're all made in China. They're all made in China. So keep that in mind. And so that's what we use. And we've got something very similar to what you have, except we don't have the carbon block. But we will. We will. And I've been looking at how it's really simple, just two filter canisters in series. Mm-hmm. Kurt, I want to share something with you. I just did some research about the cost of hot water heaters. Now, previously, if you had before these new EPA regulations of 2015, if you had a 40-gallon hot water heater, the average cost to get that thing, the average installed price, that'd be hot water heater plus somebody to put it in, a 40-gallon, a year ago, would be $1,072, typically, average installed price. Now, the increase for that 40-gallon water heater with the new regulations is another $92. Okay, so about 10%. If you move up 16 gallons to a 56-gallon, the price used to be $1,261. The additional cost is $805. So the additional cost...
Holy moly!
Yes, the additional cost to install a 50-gallon is $805. The additional cost to install a 40-gallon is $92. Now, if you go to... That's gas-fired. Now, if you go to an electric hot water heater, a 50-gallon costs $554 before the new improved regulations, and $140 more after. So add $140. If you go to a 56-gallon, 6 gallons more, you're going from a $729 installed cost previously to an additional $974.
Oh, that's insane. For that amount of money, you can get one of those instant-on ones. And that's what we're going to do if this one ever finally does give up the ghost. We're getting an instant-on hot water heater system.
You're absolutely right. It is insane. And now, that is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's talk about the real insanity of this. And that's the Whirlpool uses aluminum anodes. And these are sacrificial anodes that prevent the hot water heaters from succumbing to rust more quickly. Okay, they will succumb to rust, but it delays it. And the aluminum gets consumed by the water. And if you wash your hands, take a shower, take a bath, or make a cup of tea with hot water, and you have one of these aluminum anodes in your hot water heater, which many do, you are poisoning yourself with aluminum. And
right.
And is this my opinion? No. It's the opinion of medical doctor Norman Shealy. He said it Wednesday on the air. And if you want to hear more about this aluminum toxicity with Dr. Norman Shealy and me at USA Prepares, that's Wednesday's broadcast. So you might want to share that with friends and family. So here's what I did. Yesterday, after the broadcast, I decided to flush out this 50-gallon hot water heater. Got a 100-foot hose, stretched it out, hooked it up, flushed it once, and I decided to save this goo. And it looks like milk. You cannot see through this container. It is opaque. And I've saved this, and I'm waiting for it to settle. It hasn't settled yet, and that's since yesterday. Flushed it out 8 more times, after that, and it's still coming out with chunks out of the hose. And what I'm doing is I'm filling it up with 50 gallons of water, emptying it, filling it up with 20 gallons of water, emptying it. And it 9 times yesterday, as of last night, and 1 time this morning. So this is 10 times, and I'm going to probably do it 3, 4, 5 more times today. And I'm still getting chunks coming out of the hot water heater. If you don't think I'm serious, try it yourself. You need to do this and get a bucket.
There's something else you can do, Dave. Vincent, there's one thing you can do, and you do it on your own. You know, don't say that I recommended it, but I'm telling you, I did this once. I could not finish draining it. It just would not stop crap coming out. So I figured, I use vinegar to clean up the hard water in my coffee pot and other things. So I physically took off the cold water inlet. I turned the water off, took off the cold water inlet into the tank, made it drain. And when it was done draining, I closed the valve at the bottom and I poured 2 gallons of vinegar in through the top through a funnel. Okay, and I let that sit for about an hour. When I did drain it, I got 10 times the amount of crap out that I had been getting, but it finally flushed clear. Okay, now that could be good, it could be bad for you, because if the crud is all that's keeping the bottom of that tank from rusting through, and you clean the crud out, well, you might just cause it to rust through right then and there.
Right.
A trick for you that I did, I installed a direct drain 3 feet from my hot water heater down into the sewer. So when I flush my tank, I have a 4-foot hose, and I hook it up and I stick the end of the hose in this drain, and I flush it out. When I'm done flushing, I put a cap over that little drain.
Great idea. And that's something that I'm going to do. I have to redecorate the area where this hot water heater is, so that I can do that. But that is the plan, to have a very short hose, just like you're talking about. And the other thing that I'm going to do today is I'm going to take one of those washing machine hoses that has 2 female couplings, and I'm going to hook that up to this garden hose, and I'm going to reverse flush it. So I'm going to pump water in backwards. I'm going to pump water in through the drain, and of course I'm going to open a faucet, a hot water faucet that will let the air out. But you might need 2 people to do this. You might need even walkie-talkies, depending on your setup, so you can talk about how to do it.
You'll have to block the cold water inlet.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And then open the closest hot water faucet to the hot water tank.
And you might want to take out the aerator. And what you're going to pressurize this thing. And what I did this morning before the broadcast was I found one of those cardboard tubes in like a roll of paper towels. And I took the aerator out of the faucet, put that under where the aerator was, and I aimed that tube toward the drain of the sink, so that when it burps, it doesn't blow water all over the room. So it just directed the water toward the drain. So I wanted to share that, and I'll talk about getting rid of these aluminum anode rods and replacing them with magnesium. Magnesium is a lot safer. And Dr. Shealy feels that your body needs some magnesium, but it does not need aluminum. You will not die from a aluminum deficiency.
Well, every Alzheimer patient that has died and had an autopsy done has had a loose aluminum in their brain. Literally, they had aluminum in their brain.
Well, that's what we are doing. We are getting tested. We've had the blood drawn, and we're going to find out how much aluminum or heavy metals is in our body. So that's coming up. And I will do future broadcasts about this. Kurt, there have been a number of fires. We're reading about people burning, houses burning down, and I wanted to share this, and you're the guy to do this with. So I was thinking about these electric heaters, right? And they draw about 1,500 watts. So here's a little lesson in watts and volts and amps. Now, class, there's 2 kinds of wiring that are typically used in your house. One is 12 gauge, and it probably is Romex, meaning a plastic jacket. It has a white wire, black wire, and a ground wire. And it's 12 gauge, and it will carry 20 amperes of current. 20 amperes times 120 volts is 2,400 watts. So volts times amps equals watts. So that's the current carrying capacity. However, the wire will get hot if you do that. So recommended load for that wire is 80% of maximum. I just gave you maximum. 12 gauge is 20 amps times 120 volts is 2,400 watts. At 80%, which is the maximum you really should use as a load, 1,920 watts. How many watts is a electric heater? 1,500. Now, when we get back, I'll tell you about 14 gauge wire, which is the thinner stuff, which a lot of us have in our homes. We'll be right back. Kurt Wilson's with us, armchairsurvivalist.com. And class, I posted a link on page 1 of the website, usaprepares.com, to Kurt Wilson's website. The easy way to get to it, se1.us, se1.us. Kurt, to continue with this discussion, so that would be a 12-gauge circuit in your house. Now, some houses have, some older houses have 14-gauge wire, which is thinner than 12-gauge wire. And that's rated at 1,800 watts maximum. Now, if you take 80% of that and you say that's a safe load, that's 1,440 watts. How many watts is a little electric heater? 1,500. Now, if you add to that circuit a light bulb, let's say a 100-watt light bulb, now you're getting the wire even hotter. And if you think you need an example to see if the wire gets hot, here's what you do. Plug in one of those electric heaters and feel the power cord. Feel it near the plug. You won't believe it. It's warm. Now, your wiring gets warm in the walls. And if you've got that heater going and you've got lighting going and it's all in the same circuit, you can cause a serious situation which can set a fire inside your walls. Kurt, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, the worst, I physically saw, okay, it was something you didn't mention, and you probably know about it already. Some of the pre-70s houses, they used aluminum wire.
Yes, they did.
And this aluminum wire would now in conjunction with copper wire.
Yes.
So what would happen is the two dissimilar metals would cause a corrosive effect to each other, and one would get hotter than the other. I'm sitting watching television, and all of a sudden my socket, one of my receptacles on the wall to my right, exploded and blew 20 feet across the room. Needless to say, I was slightly shaken. I could see red going up a line in my wall. It was glowing so much from the inside. I hit it with Freon real quick. I punched a hole in the top of the wall and aimed down with a Freon canister and cooled the whole thing down. But there are dangers there, yes, and that's not the worst part, because generally you're going to have a 20 amp circuit breaker in your house that'll click it. Okay, but here's where stupid comes in. Some guy says, I can't afford to run the forced air heater, so I'm going to have a little heater for my wife in her chair and a little heater for me in my chair, and we'll plug it into this little extension cord I have here. And
right.
and then I'm going to plug my light in that too. And my wife can plug her phone charger into that too, because it has 7 holes in it. So this extension thing here should be just fine for us. And then they leave to go to work, and they come home and they wonder why their house is burnt to the ground. This is not a make-believe scenario. This is real. This happens every single day in the United States somewhere. And it's you have to understand, and your heater will say on it, your little electric heater will have a little tag that says, do not plug into an extension cord. In one way or another, it'll tell you that. Plug directly into the wall. Because these extension cords are like, 16 gauge. They're like lamp cord, almost. Some of them are 14 gauge. Some of them are 10 gauge or 12.
Some are 18 gauge, even thinner.
Yeah, so they're not made to handle amperage. And you're over-amping these things, and you're drawing more power, and that creates heat, which is going to cause a fire. We had 3 of them here in Coeur d'Alene in the past week.
And that's why I wanted to mention that on this broadcast. Kurt, here's another thing. When we plug our appliances into our kitchen receptacles on the counter, let's say it's a griddle, and you plug it in and the griddle's powered on, And now you're using the electric plug on the cord of the griddle as the switch. So what happens is there's a little bit of an arc there. Next time you plug it in again, or a coffee maker again and again, pretty soon there will be some pitting in the receptacle. And you'll feel that because the plug doesn't go in as smoothly as it used to. And then you have more resistance, which is more likely to cause more heat right there. And that's a great fire potential. So what we do is, when we notice that, we replace those receptacles. Yeah.
Well, that one plug up on the counter is hooked in line to 5 other plugs in your kitchen.
There you go.
So you're pulling amperage from all of those. So if you have a coffee maker in one, and you have a griddle in another, and a toaster in another, you're over-amping that circuit.
You're right. Kurt, we're out of time. Thanks so much for being with us. I appreciate your input. I really do.